In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to knit this stitch on a double bed knitting machine. For this sample, I also use a plating feeder to achieve the two color effect, which I think is really nice for this sample. If you're not sure how to use a plating feeder, I have a tutorial for that, which I will link in the description down below, so you can check that out. This is the wrong side of the fabric. These are the yarns that I used for this sample. A very fine cotton cashmere, and I have here 3 ends of a finer, I think it's also cotton. So I have just finished my 1x1 rib, and I will put my beds in half pitch. I will increase my tension slightly. I will have tension 4 for ribbon bed and tension 2 for main bed. I will also put all the needles in action on both beds. And I will knit a couple of rows. New stitches are formed now, and I will get some little holes there, but I don't mind. This is the chart for this sample. I kind of marked all the transfers. All the squares marked in green are a purl stitch on the right side of the fabric, and all the squares that are left in white will be a knit stitch. And I like to draw a line in the very center. This way I can keep track of where I am. When I begin transfers, I always begin from the very middle, so where the 0 is, and I go to the right and to the left. If I make sure that the center stitches are transferred correctly, this way I ensure that I transfer everything else correctly as well. If you want to take a screenshot of this chart and print it out, you can do so. Maybe it will be helpful for you, but this is just how I work, and this is what works for me. Just to explain the chart a little bit, what this means here to me is that I am transferring stitches using a 2-pronged tool to the left, and the 2 needles on the right side will have 2 stitches, and these needles will be without a stitch. So when I look at the fabric on the right side, that will be a purl stitch. And now I know that the 4 needles in the very center, so 2 needles each side of point 0, will have 2 stitches. So I'll begin transferring like that. These are the 4 needles in the very center, and I'll grab 2 stitches to the right, transferring them together to the left on top of these 2 needles. And I will repeat the same on the other side. Like I said, these 4 needles now have 2 stitches, and I've emptied 2 needles. I can see that in total I will empty 4 needles, so I will repeat the same on the other side. I'm not going to demonstrate the chart anymore. This is just for anyone who actually would like to follow the chart, just so you know how this works. But basically everything that is here in green will be a purl stitch on the right side, which means I have to transfer needles on main bed in order to create that. And here, when I have the circle, is where we're placing needles back in action, and that will also form a little eyelet. So this is just how I represent that on the chart. If you need more help reading charts, you can contact me and I can help you out with that. I will leave my email down below as well. So I'm repeating the same, and I'm transferring across to have 4 needles with 2 stitches and 4 needles out of action in between. I will leave the needles that I've emptied all the way to the back, so in non-working position, and I will knit 2 rows. It's always a good idea to put needles all the way out before knitting rows, just to avoid any accidents. Continue with another repeat in the same way, but this time I'm transferring only 1 stitch using a 1-pronged tool, just like so. Now I have 2 needles with 2 stitches with 6 needles out of action across the main bed. Again, I will knit 2 rows. And for the next step, like I said before, we're just going to put needles in action to create a new stitch, and that will also form a little eyelet. So for the next step, all I have to do is to place needles in action, and I will place 1 needle on either side of the 2 needles that I had in action previously, just like so. If it helps, you can even pull them all the way out just so you can see them better. And now again, I have 4 needles in action, 4 out of action across the main bed. We'll again knit 2 rows. So we created 2 new stitches like so. We'll repeat the process again. 1 more needle on either side of the 4 needles that I had previously in action. And I will knit 2 more rows. And we'll repeat this one more time, put the rest of the needles, and now again I have a full needle rib. This time I will knit 3 rows in total. So I have just completed the first section of the repeat. This first section of the repeat is slightly different than what's going to happen next. These ones are shorter repeats, so I'm only transferring once and then I'm placing needles back in action just like I did here. I like having a larger section right here to kind of divide the whole repeat. I think that's quite pretty, but you can of course either repeat what we've done now over and over again, or you can repeat what we're going to do next. But I do like having these sections here in between. I think that's really pretty. Obviously, this is all up to you. This is just an idea. You can use this however you like. For the next part, I will repeat just like I did before. I will transfer 2 stitches over 2, so that the 4 needles in the very center will have 2 stitches. And I will repeat that across. We'll again knit 2 rows. For the next part, I will not transfer to have 2 stitches in the middle like I had before. I will already begin placing needles in action. 2, 1 on either side of these 4 that I had, just like so. And we'll knit 2 rows. And now I have 6 needles in action with 2 out of action across the main bed. We'll push the last 2 in action to have a full needle rib just like I had before. Knitted 2 more rows. If we take another look at the little chart for the next section, you can see that we're actually emptying the 4 needles in the very center. Before we transferred stitches onto them, and now we're emptying them. This way we're staggering the repeat, and that gives this nice effect of traveling stitches. But you can of course continue straight if you like. That is probably a different variation of this design, and if you do try that, please make sure to share with me as well. This is just an idea. You can of course adapt this however you like. Okay, so we're grabbing the 2 needles to the right side of number 0, transferring them to the right like so. We're doing the same with the rest. And just like before, we're transferring to have 4 needles with 2 stitches and 4 needles out of action across the main bed. We're placing 1 needle in action on either side of the 4 stitches that we had. Knitting 2 more rows. And place the last 2 to form a full needle rib. We have to repeat again, having 4 needles in the very middle with 2 stitches. And the last part of this whole repeat is to empty the 4 needles in the very center on the main bed. Place the remaining needles in action, and now to complete the repeat, I'm going to knit 6 rows. You can see how we got the little holes when we just placed needle in action after the 1 by 1 rib. I do like that, but you can of course grab the purl bar of stitches to create new stitches and not get a little hole, but I think that kind of goes quite well with the rest of the sample, as we have eyelets as well. What we did now, we completed the repeat from the bottom point here to up here. You can see that we knitted more rows here to kind of break the repeat in half. If you would like to begin a new repeat, you can go back from the beginning of the video and watch again, and this way you will complete another repeat and so forth. I really like this. It's quite feminine and quite, I don't know, it's cute. I really like the fabric that we're creating like this. It's quite nice and structured. I think it will look really nice to use for a scarf, as the edges don't curl since it's done on double bed, which is quite nice. Up here, what I tried to do is a variation of this repeat, and I knitted 4 rows in between every transfer. So basically I did exactly what I did on this side, but knitted more rows in between. This is just an idea on how you can create different variations of this repeat. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. I can see that half of the people that are watching my videos are actually not subscribed, and it would really mean the world to me. It will also help the channel, as YouTube will recommend me to more knitters, which is quite nice. So please consider subscribing. I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.